Basketball Hall of Famer and Warriors exec Jerry West says the talent level in the NBA is among the worst it's ever been. Here's what he said on SVP and Russillo.
I think it's a poor one myself, based upon there's going to be prospects there, but these franchises that really have struggled, at one time you could get a branded name. These kids are not branded today. They're not branded. And by that I mean a kid that's played at school for 4 or 5 years or 3 years and comes out, people know who he is. He's tutored. He's more mature, more experienced. Those kind of players come in and make an impact right away. But if you look at some of these kids, it takes about 3 years for them to get going. And for a team that's really struggling, you're telling your fans that this player is going to make us better. Most of the time, it does not happen today.
So the logo actually not too hot on this highly touted incoming NBA draft class. Freddie, we'll start with you. Does he have a point?
From the standpoint of Jerry West, because he's played against the greats of the game. He played with and against Wilt Chamberlain. He played against Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He played against all those top 50 Mount Rushmore type players when he played in the 60s and 70s. From his standpoint, he sees guys like Jabari Parker of Duke, Andrew Wiggins of Kansas, and he says all they can do is either dunk or hit a three-pointer. He doesn't see the fundamentals that you're going to need, as far as he's concerned, in his mind, to be an NBA great player, or at least more than a serviceable player. So from that standpoint, he has a point. From my standpoint, I think he's just being way too hard on 18, 19-year-old kids who have not gotten to the NBA. Not everybody is going to be an Oscar Robertson or Jerry West or Magic Johnson when they played in college basketball. Magic Johnson, for example, he was a prodigy. No one had ever seen a guy 6'9" being able to do the things that he can do. So I think by making that comparison, he's kind of putting them in a corner that they can never get out of, because he's comparing them to the greats who played in the NBA and in college. I think that's why I think his point is off base, because we still don't know how good Jabari Parker is going to be. I can't wait to find out. I can't wait to see when he gets to the NBA, or Andrew Wiggins or people like that. But I think to kind of say these guys is the weakest draft class on paper, I think that's just completely out of bounds. And believe me, I hate to say that about the logo, because I love going to NBA games. I don't want to be blacklisted from NBA games by saying this about Jerry West, but I think let's wait and see what those guys can do if they develop and expand their games either in college or when they get to the NBA.
Yeah, I think it's a complete overreaction. I look at it and I say to myself, yeah, shooting threes and dunking, those are skills. And you know what? Whatever's been lost in fundamentals, and I think that there's a lot of nuance to that discussion, has been gained in athleticism in the NBA game and even in college basketball. And three-point shooting is up, pace is up. And that means there's specialty guys out there. There are guys that can shoot the ball. Last I checked, that's a fundamental skill in basketball, is being able to shoot the ball. Not everyone is going to be a traditional post-up player like a Kareem or guys like that, or Patrick Ewing and David Robinson, those type of guys. And power forwards, I know in today's NBA, and a lot of this is the international influx, and I think it's helped. If anything, those guys helped bring back fundamentals to a game that I thought lost it for a stretch. But you look at a guy like Dirk Nowitzki, yeah, I mean, he's a shooting guard that's 7 feet tall. But that's made the game better in a lot of ways, because it's increased the pacing, it's increased the scoring. The NBA made a conscious decision to do all this. They put in all those rules defensively that don't allow you to touch guys. And when Kobe is sitting there talking about, I don't like the finesse game anymore, well, again, that was a conscious decision made by everyone involved, David Stern, the owners, and everyone involved in the NBA. And I'll say this, was Kobe branded when Jerry West traded Vlade Divac on draft night for Kobe Bryant? He wasn't branded either.
Right.
So no disrespect to him. He's the logo. He's one of the greatest players of all time. But it starts to make me think a little bit. I know he's a consultant with Golden State, but I mean, that team isn't built traditionally either. No. So it's like, I don't understand where these comments are necessarily coming from. I think the NBA talent is as good as it's been in a long time, since the 90s. And really the only thing that's changed is defense is not as good. And that's mostly because the rules have changed.
Right. I mean, I would agree to a point. I mean, I think if you're, a hardcore traditionalist, if you want to see fundamentals of the game, absolutely the game has changed. I mean, how many teams play with 2 point guards, 2 forwards, and a center? I mean, you hardly ever see that anymore. You see a lot more isolation basketball, which isn't exactly rocket science, and you definitely see less defense. So I could see him from a traditionalist standpoint making some of those comments about today's NBA players. As far as the younger class goes, it almost seems to me when he basically rips on the class coming out and says it's a weak draft class, and then he goes into about, hey, these guys could use 3 or 4 more years to branding. It almost looks like he's making a push, because it's been in the conversation. We talked about it yesterday, about having the guys stay 2 years in school. And from that standpoint, I would tend to agree with him. I mean, a guy like Andrew Wiggins, all the talent in the world, I would say he's underwhelmed this year as a freshman because of the huge, enormous hype that has been put on him. And for every Kobe Bryant, for every LeBron James that comes out of high school, how many guys did we see come out that were not that big and that they did fail because they didn't get that, the development that they needed at the college level? Even last year's draft, if you look at the players who are excelling more now at the NBA, they're guys that spent even just 2 years. When you look at Michael Carter-Williams, Trey Burke, Oladipo, guys who spent 2 years had a much higher success rate than some of the guys that came out as freshmen. I mean, I think that's kind of where he was going. I can see his point, but yeah, did he come across like a crotchety old guy who's like, yes,
get off my lawn.
Exactly. And to your point, Kobe Bryant even struggled when he first got to the NBA. The problem with trying to compare the Jabari Parkers and the Andrew Wigginses of the world to the LeBron James was a stud from day one. I don't think people realize how hard that is to do in professional sports.
Of course.
At 18 years of age, when everybody said, is this guy going to be as good as the hype has? He's been better when you think about it. The minute he stepped on a basketball court against the Sacramento Kings, he almost had a triple-double in his first game. Many young kids probably saw that and said, hey, if LeBron can do it, I got that kind of skill level. They don't realize how he made the easy look that much easier. So Jerry West, nothing personal against the logo. One of my favorite players of all time. I just think you need to really kind of not give as much shade to what happened when you were playing and realize that these kids are going to be better NBA players than maybe you want to give them credit for.